Audio Jungle.
Welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. Oh yeah!
Everybody, welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. This is following Michigan week, heading into Illinois. We are back. We got Chuck with us again, back by popular demand. He was on last week's show. Got a lot of great rave reviews from that one. So Chuck Hall, welcome back to the HuskGuys podcast. Andrew's here as always. Chuck, welcome back.
It is good to be back. Yep, my mom and dad listened, and they said I did good, so they said, come on back.
Yeah. Well, so your parents listen and our parents listen, so that's good. So we got four. So we have four listeners. We got some really good feedback from the last one, but this one's going to be a little bit tougher. This is what separates the men from the boys in the podcast game is, podcasting after a loss, consistently podcasting after a loss. Yeah. I was a coward and I ducked out of the Colorado game because I just couldn't do it. With this one, we're going to tough through it. We're going to grind through it. We're going to talk about Michigan. We're going to talk about how we have finally made it to the best part of the season, playing Illinois and Northwestern and Purdue and teams we think we theoretically should be able to beat. And we are also going to look a little bit at the start that Rule has had and compare it to Frost, just trying to find some comparisons and some analogies and compare them against each other. So that's on slate for today. Before we kick off, a word from our sponsors, sponsored as always by Pipeline Jerky. We got some fresh new bags that we just kicked off with, so go to pipeline-jerky.com. We did a great episode last week diving into the founding of Pipeline Jerky. A royalty of every single bag goes to the offensive line. Yes, I know they need to play better. Our sales do go down every time that we lose. It is very hard. I do get a lot of direct messages from people blaming me for the lack of offensive line play, but this is a pro offensive line podcast, so we will not be directing our attention towards that, but just buy some jerky. It's good for you, and it's good for the line to help us get better players. Go to HuskGuysStore.com as well. Check out some of the new gear we got going on. Run the ball gear. This is the year of gear. A lot of good stuff on the Huskers site there. And finally, from Land and Lore, as we've mentioned on a bunch of episodes, and man, where we getting some wrinkles now. Wrinkles, gray hair, all sorts of things. The wrinkles are there. We're trying to spread optimism. We're trying to do it on this pod. We're trying to fight back any way that we can. Black shirts are fighting a little bit, but most importantly, you can fight your wrinkles too. Defend against being old and run down. Land and Lore has all sorts of products that can help you with this. Everything is from the land. It's all natural. It's made in Nebraska. When you try it, you get 10% off using HuskGuys10 at checkoff. So go to land-lore.com. Proud sponsors of the HuskGuys pod and Wrinkle Killer. Land-lore.com. Boys, here we are. It is Michigan week. We were talking a little bit before. I was hoping to maybe just, post Michigan week. I was hoping to just skip over Michigan, but we should probably talk about it. That was obliteration. Never close. Never close. I mean,
nobody had fun. Not even Michigan had fun. Honestly, they were like, "Wow, I came all the way for this."
I mean,
they were just.
It was, they score on the first drive pretty effortlessly. Second play of the offensive possession, interception. We're down 14-0, and everyone in the stadium is hot. It's 93 degrees.
Sean Singleton is already out at that
Sean
point.
Singleton has already been hurt. Reimer is out already.
Great.
And everyone collectively was like, we're in big trouble.
So I must say, though, maybe they listened to the cast. There was mention last week that, you just kind of, if you get down early, you just basically forfeit and say, we're not going to get anyone else hurt. So our swag player of the week of last week gets hurt on the second play. Maybe they were like, all right.
Andrew, I think can we talk about that? Are we talking about the jinx factor of now the singular swag player of the week being done for the season?
Yeah. I mean, we try and focus on the highlights, and typically the swag helps you play better. It does not help shut your season down and it may be your career, but oh man, yeah, that stunk. God.
I mean, right? Anthony Grant had like 6 carries, right? So they shut it down.
Fresh. He's fresh. So he's fresh heading into the conference schedule. I'm glad we saved him. We didn't want to use him against Michigan. That's you want to make sure you reserve all of your best players when you're playing the number one team in the country. I do think. Look, I think Michigan was good. I think I was sort of spiraling a lot, and we can kind of break down some of the spiral components of it because I think there's a certain pass that Rule's getting because of his track record of saying like, oh, this is what he does in year one. He struggles in year one, and then year two, he gets better in year three. So I don't know if we, it's hard not to overreact to just getting absolutely, our doors blown off in year one. I think the one thing, and here's on your guys' perspective right away, a lot of the players on the team, so like if they were all freshmen or sophomores, it'd be like, oh yeah, they're all brand new. A lot of these guys were on the team that played with Michigan 2 years ago. So I'm struggling a little bit with the fact that like we're 2 years removed from, being a Adrian Martinez fumble away from beating Michigan to just like in 2 years now we don't even belong on the same field as them. Like, what do you guys make of that?
A lot of that dynamic quarterback play is a big thing, right? Adrian, his record does not represent how talented he was, right? And when you just have no dynamic quarterback and you've got a really strong defense you're going against, and they can start to just hone in on, think about it. In what ways were we going to try to beat them? Last week on the pod, we talked about who's going to be the offensive player of the week. I said, I hope it's Fedoni because that means that things went well. But I even jokingly floated out Fleeks. I was like, I hear they're throwing him in at running back. We'll see how that goes.
One carry, 74 yards.
You cannot definitively say
for more hot takes.
Yeah, you cannot definitively say right now that Fleeks is not the best running back in the entire history of the program. One carry, 74 yards.
RB1. Oh man, yeah.
It was you're right on the first year jitters and whatever, and like he's a culture builder and all of that stuff. But so I can talk myself into two different pathways. Pathway number one is is the get rich now and get good now, and maybe it's not built sustainably, but like maybe you sneak out a couple more wins like Colorado might do this year. I still think they are maybe a 6-win team, but that is way better than what they were supposed to be, and that's going to gain them recruits, that's going to gain them transfers, they're going to build on that. And the other is the slow burn, which is you win 4 games this year and it sucks again, and we say, is this the right guy, and is this the right thing, and yada yada. And he has to buy more time, and he has to buy with some words and everything going into this offseason. I think what we want to see is that these next 4 games, things start to get corrected that give everybody hope. And then the last 3 games, you kind of put it all together, basically. If we're doing things well, like the pathway number 1 is the get rich now is like boom or bust, basically. Pathway number 2 is you're putting in schemes, you're putting in things that you're going to build on. You're going to hopefully just play clean, and you're going to hopefully get back to complete fundamentals and stuff. You might not have all the explosive plays, you might not have all the explosive playmakers, but you can see it, and you can see what next year might bring, and you can see what's on the horizon. That's what we've been missing, I think, so far.
Yeah.
I think we've scored 98 points total. USC averages 53 points a game.
Every game. Caleb Williams had 6 touchdowns on Saturday by himself.
Yeah, and it was not really a problem. He
could have scored 10.
So that's nearly lost.
That's where I think that we are at.
Lost.
We're pathway number 2, and we are, and that Rule's committed to it. That he's got a history of it. But we have the worst offense in the Big Ten right now, and you need to see some of these things start to correct over these next 4 games.
Yeah, we've been shut out 3 times in the first half, the first 5 games.
Yeah, we have 0 points in the first half against Power 5 opponents.
It's crazy. It's like, what are we doing? I think that's what's like. You think about like what Rule's trying to build, and what we've talked about is if we're building a defense first culture, I'm all in. Love it, right? Like, but we just got obliterated. So it's like, Is our rush defense that good? I don't know. It's like I can easily just pretend that game didn't happen and be like, no, we are still the best rushing defense in the country. But, they ran for 249 yards pretty effortlessly throughout the whole game. So we're like, all right, maybe that exists. The offense, I have no idea. This is the worst offense we're the worst offense currently in the country. It's probably the worst offense in Nebraska history. I mean, is it?
Close. 18.8 points a game.
I mean, I can't think of a worse one that I've ever seen line up that I have less confidence in.
And that 18.8, right? That's below the 20-point comical Brian Ferentz line of demarcation, right? Like
Iowa is currently outscoring us.
And now Cade McNamara is done for the year, so it's like
Iowa's at 101st in the country, and we are at 122nd, I believe, scoring offense.
Well, so this is like where I sort of want to take this, and then we can kind of come back and weave back in Michigan and Illinois. I think the comparison of Frost. I did two things. I broke down like this comparison to Frost's first year and sort of trying to figure out what we're missing, or at least we're missing as fans, maybe not as a team. And then the other part is I dug into Rule in Baylor. I tried to figure out like what he was doing, like what is his thing. So in the first, and you guys, this is a trip down memory lane with Frost year 1, 2018.
Oh God.
Dark. But so here's I guess here's the interesting. So the Akron game gets canceled, right? Gone.
Fuck.
Colorado.
Close your eyes, plug your ears, young children.
Colorado. So here's the difference, though.
Memory lane sucks.
Colorado, we lost. We started 0-6. Colorado, we lost. But here was the missing point of like what I haven't seen from Rule. Adrian was absolutely electric and was a freshman, and you could see what Frost was building. Mm-hmm. Right? You're like, okay, that was a devastating loss to Colorado, devastating loss to Troy, like all of these bad losses. But you could see that Adrian was electric. You could see what the offense was going to be. You could see like, okay, there's sparks. There's sparks. And then what I think Rule has the opportunity to do is what he did in the back half of the year. So he starts 0-6. He also got obliterated by Michigan. But then in the back half of the year, we went 4-2. He put up 50 points on Minnesota, 45 points on BCU. The game against Ohio State was 36-31, which was another like coming out game of like, okay, we can play with Ohio State. 50 points on Illinois, Michigan State win, and then a last second loss to Iowa. But 4-2 finish, which is what Rule can do the rest of this season, is he can finish this 4-2 and build up this momentum, because that was enough for us, right? And obviously this is like, it didn't work out, so it's hard to even compare it to it. But you come out of that season, you're like, okay, they won 4 of their last 6, and Adrian's electric. The offense is exciting. We've got exciting players. Like, even if you look at the stats that they had, Adrian had 2,600 passing yards, 600 rushing yards. Divino Zigbo was a 1,000-yard rusher. Stanley Morgan was a 1,000-yard receiver. J.D. Spielman, Stoll, Maurice Washington. Obviously, all these guys are tragedies. But like at the time, you're at least like, okay, this is exciting. This is what it's going to come into. Rule's building something dramatically different, which is clearly defensive first, with a like weirdly plotting offense. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing on offense or what his plan is. I don't see any of it. I see the defense and I get it, but I don't see anything else.
And I think he would get such a pass. Like if we had Casey Thompson right now and he was the guy that got injured and you had to bring in Harburg, you can absolutely make the case. Be like, yeah, we were going to go 5 wide and air it out. But Sims isn't that guy. Sims and Harburg are kind of the same guy. Athletically with what their skill sets are. And that to me is like, I would love the media to kind of grill Satterfield a little more and kind of find out what is it that you thought you were going to have, and how is this what you're bringing? Because if it's a deal where you're like, oh yeah, we got a bunch of guys coming next year, or we got a bunch of freshmen that we're redshirting, or anything at all, but it's like, you went and got a quarterback. You went and handpicked this guy. You got rid of
your boy Raiola was at the game again.
Yeah,
he's back.
He might be coming.
I mean, but there's no stud quarterback that's coming in. There's no transfer quarterback that we were super excited about. There's no like big time running back. You're sort of just like, he just took the guys he had, which is great. But then you're like, all right, well, are we just sort of just going to,
which way are we going? Yeah,
we're just going to score 18 points a game and just not score ever in the first half. We're just that's our strategy.
Second half team. Yeah, I think that as far as like there's the micro questions and the macro questions, as you kind of phrased it. But the micro is basically like trying to figure out what do we do well and we kind of touched on that last week. It seems to me that like the first 2 games probably on offense with Sims were far different in the way that they were approached. Like Sims did seem to run the ball, a good amount. But if you look at what we've gone to in these last couple of games, I think that they've been like, it's not just the Harburg switch, it's the Sims and Harburg. The plays that are being called, like there's so much QB run game and stuff now.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if that was like an oh God kind of moment. Like we don't have someone that can put the ball to our receivers. And then they just kind of 2 or 3 games in just started trimming the playbook and saying, we just need to completely become a power running team. And that is hard to switch your philosophy as Scott Satterfield. I mean, you look at what he ran last year with Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
It was not this.
Well, I think that's because was Satterfield at Baylor too?
I don't remember his past, but
Chuck, do you remember?
Just kind of aired it out.
I don't believe so, though. I thought they were a new marriage.
Because Baylor in 2019, I think Satterfield. Somebody's got to look this up. I think he was with them at Temple or something. I thought they'd been together at some point. Because the Baylor 2019 team, his best team at Baylor, Charlie Brewer was the quarterback. He threw for 3,000 yards and only had 300 rushing yards. That to me is probably what he wants.
Yeah,
is way heavier, like kind of it is a little bit of an RPO because you got a 400, 350, 400 yards out of the quarterback. But as a game breakdown, that Baylor team in 2019, 250 passing yards a game, 160 rushing yards per game. Total offense 420. It's a great balance, great mix.
Well, it's interesting
and
too.
Right now we just run, right?
And he goes after Raiola pretty hard after Frost blew it entirely. Good Lord. But he goes after Raiola and then, as kind of and then he goes after Danny Kalin at the same time. Neither of them are running quarterbacks. So,
I know. Yeah. So that's a good point.
Right now, it's just.
But he got Sims too.
He did get Sims.
So it's so confusing because you're like.
Well, that's why I'm kind of saying I think that their thought was they were going to be able to be more balanced, probably like. Maybe slightly more running than passing, but like overall they were going to be, a pretty balanced offense. And now it's completely shifted. We call more quarterback runs. We have the most quarterback run attempts in the Big Ten. Harburg actually has the most quarterback run attempts in the Big Ten. He didn't even play the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So I think
he's like the fourth. He's like the 4th most rushing yards as a quarterback in the country right now. Which if it works, it works. I'm all for it, but it's not working.
And it's frustrating too when you watch like these power run teams that you're like, all right, cool, you're a ground and pound power run team, like Michigan, like Iowa, like Wisconsin, historically has been, like Minnesota. What you see a lot of is those easy little tight end dump passes that get you, that easy 5, 10, 15 yard, dump pass on a play action. We don't do any of that either though. And what you see is on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 from those other teams, they line up and they punch you in the mouth. Yeah. And we don't see that either. We line up in shotgun. We try to take a 6'5" guy over a pile, whereas everybody else lines it up, sneaks it, goes low, gets leverage. We don't do any of the things that a power rushing team would do.
Yeah.
So yes, we run the ball a lot, but it's not power.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's the tale of 2 drives was Michigan coming up, and they had that 3rd and 1 that they got stopped on, and then we stopped them on 3rd and 1, and they lined up on 4th and 1, and they didn't even blink. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna get this. Like, but they didn't even think about it. It was like, and they just blew us off the ball. Contrasted with us the next drive, down 14-0, and the opportunity to score. We do a shotgun quarterback jump over the huddle. I don't even know what he was doing. He talked about it in the post game. He's like, I wish I hadn't done that. I'm like, well, yeah, but why are we calling? I don't know. That's so weird.
You did it.
Yeah, that's like, what are we doing?
But whenever we get into these times of trying to convince ourselves that Nebraska is good or has an identity or can be good, I always like to remember the division that we're in and the team that we get to play next, and the fact that they almost lost to Toledo. And so, I think to go positive, you just have to go, negative recruiting against the team we're about to play. That's a silver lining for me.
But then, here's the humbling part: is that freaking Vegas line comes out and we're 4-point dogs. You're just like, oh, and that's one of those stark realities where you're like, everyone else thinks we're not good except for the 3 of us in this room.
Yeah.
Like I watched that Illinois versus Toledo game because I was like, all right, this is the team that should win in our division, like at that time. And for them to beat Toledo, they had a 4th and 5. And a guy came
like 4th and 16, wasn't it?
I think it was shorter than that, but they had there was a clean blitz. It was just the guy came off the corner, just had him dead to rights, and he lobs one up 31 yards, and his receiver just jumps over a guy and brings it in, and that's the game-winning field goal. It's like they should have lost,
Yeah, so they're definitely down. They're down big time. I mean, they just got obliterated by Purdue of all people. So that's
like the other thing is just this is one of those games where you start to find like, okay, you got to find who are your dudes going to be, like who are your guys going to be that ascend, because these games end up coming like these Big Ten West ugly slop fests of games are like, they're like 8th grade football games where you run it, 80% of the time. You try and control the clock. But if you've got some dudes, if St. Margaret Mary has some dudes over St. Wenceslas, you give them the ball and they win you the game. And I think that we've found that like Fedoni he probably has that in him. We just need to get him the ball. Like if you look at what Georgia is doing with Brock Bowers, it's unbelievable.
He's a man child.
He beat Auburn like on his own.
Yeah, he's a man child.
They're getting it to him. You know where he's going to be. Everyone knows where he's lined up. Like that just comes to show you like you can't game plan for some of these players. And Fedoni, I think, can be one of those guys. I think Kemp is a little bit more of like he's developing a little rapport and stuff with Heinrich as well. A little bit more of a safety valve. The other one just is going to have to be Grant, I think, like by defense. Like you have to have your running back. You have to have Harburg get it to the right players. Fedoni can be that X factor. And then, I would say Marcus Washington and stuff too. But those are the guys that are going to be able to take your offense and just instead of being, trying to get the ball to every single person on the field, just screw it. Hone in on Fedoni. Hey, it's coming to you, bud. You better be open. I can't tell anybody else.
Yeah, I think it's
2% passer. So
it's what's lacking. And it's hard because I think that when you watch other games, you see it. It's like an elite college player can win you a football game. Caleb Williams single-handedly wins USC multiple football games. Even, that game, Shedeur Sanders can keep Colorado in a football game by himself. Like these elite players can do that, as well as who's Ole Miss quarterback, Jackson Dart. I mean, he was unbelievable against LSU. These elite players can do that. I think you're exactly right that Fedoni can do it. Grant can do it. I don't think they're of that caliber. Like he's nowhere near Brock Bowers.
If we control the clock and we just, we run the ball, we convert some big third downs, we have a couple breakthrough plays, which is going to have to come from, Fedoni, Grant, Washington, Kemp, Harburg. Like those are kind of going to have to be our guys. If you do that and you just play solid defense, most Big Ten West offenses are so bad that they're going to drive themselves into the dirt, and you come out and you win 11-10, and life is good.
Yeah, I think the Northern Illinois playbook does work against Illinois.
Sure.
I think you just sort of bleed them out, you bore them to death. Because Reggie Love's hurt, right? They're starting running back, Illinois.
Oof, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he's hurt.
Report.
Yeah, he busted his ankle against Purdue, so that'd be sweet. I mean, obviously,
So we got that going for us.
I mean, you hate to see it, but
obviously, TNT's to him, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery, and hopefully he's healthy by Sunday, but not Saturday.
Not that speedy.
Not that speedy. I mean, Luke Altmaier is trash. He's just not a good quarterback, and Reggie Love is hurt, and they're just not good. They're not what they were last year. Their defense is nowhere near what they were last year, and Brian Walters was there and was at Purdue, and so. Maybe that's why Purdue was able to beat him so handily, was because he knew all their plays. But there's a component of
Brett Bielema plays.
Yeah, I mean, there's a component though of like this is not the Illinois team of last year that was playing extremely well. This is an Illinois team that's playing extremely poorly and is coming off some very bad losses. The Toledo barely won, as well as a bad Purdue loss on short rest. We're coming off a bad loss too, but it's at least to a good team. But I agree. I think the Northern Illinois playbook wins here. I think you can control the clock, not turn the ball over, and Harbor can break a couple runs, and Grant can control the game, and Fedoni has a couple touchdowns. You're good, and then you win. I mean, you just got to find a way to win.
I was actually pleasantly surprised by Harburg's arm, when the game was still in the balance, other than the tip ball, of course. I mean, there wasn't much. We weren't really forcing a whole lot, and we weren't trying to do too much and be too creative. But there were a few passes where he hit guys in stride through defenders, or just had a guy open and hit him. Where, hey, if you're able to do that against Michigan, that stuff will be there in the next stretch of these 4 games. If you can be that, if everyone's expecting you to just run the ball, quarterback run, as long as you can hit those 10, 15-yard routes, the 9 to 11 times we're looking for it, that opens up the entire playbook too. And then it's just about finishing in the red zone. I mean, we weren't so far this season, we haven't been that bad between the 20s. But as soon as we cross, even give it the 30-yard line, as soon as we're in borderline field goal range,
panic.
Everything goes wrong. And so much of that's mental. And I think everything about this team right now is mental, and this fan base too, because we've been through it. But even Jeff Sims, all of those fumbles, almost every single one of them was on 3rd down or in the red zone, just drop snaps. And it's so much of the sports psychology that's really interesting to watch play out. But to your point with Illinois, last year they looked like world beaters. They just had that confidence. There's no way they can be riding high or have any semblance of confidence coming into this game. Now, it's a Friday night, right? So weird stuff can happen. I hate these gimmick games because we lose every single one of them.
Well, that's what it's. I mean, that's Friday night. There's gonna be no fans there. Illinois fans have given up. They don't care. The stadium seats 40,000 anyways. Barely anybody's watching all this stuff. I think it's a great point, Chuck, that there's this element of sports psychology and lack of confidence. And it's so crazy to me that you can watch Maryland start 5-0, and you're like, why do they all of a sudden have confidence? And why does Rutgers is 4-1? Why do they get to have confidence? And then you have this team in Nebraska that's just total panic at all times. So you're like, guys, Maryland knows how to win games. Rutgers knows how to win games. Purdue just won a big game. It's why are we the only one that recruits Division I, Power 5, elite 4-star athletes that are panic?
Everybody's doing it, guys. It's fine.
It's just there's just never been a program in history that makes winning look harder than this program.
And the Stars can just somehow find a way to align against us. Colorado is the worst it has ever been in the history of the program, and all of a sudden Coach Prime comes in and beats them at peak Coach Prime. So that happens, and then
they lose 2 in a row right after that too.
Right, and Minnesota drags a toe to beat us, and it's you know what? If Coach Prime just isn't there, and that guy doesn't drag a toe, are we 4-1 with 1 loss to Michigan? We could make the playoff. Why not?
Yeah, we just have to assume that these things are going to happen, though. That's the problem, is that everything within our own control, we are not doing a great job of controlling.
I mean, there's that weird element though of just you making your own luck, right? Good players make great plays, and the interception, that was a D tackle that caught that over his shoulder, right? And it was an amazing catch, and the first touchdown pass that they threw, that's an unbelievable play. And then contrast that with they fumble a punt, and it bounces in front of him, and we have no one there. There's no one in sight. There's no one even near it. He grabs it, runs for 30 yards. There's an element of quote unquote bad luck, and then there's just we're not even in the position to play. We're not even, and our elite players aren't making those plays. Their elite players are making those plays.
I don't think there's any doubt that Sean Eichhorst left some sort of curse on us. Maybe the Polish curse, but I'm more convinced it was Eichhorst. And I mean, it's complete witchcraft, the things that are happening around Lincoln. There are things we can control, and then there's just whatever you call this complete and utter nonsense that goes on Saturdays, and the ways that we find to win. It's just unbelievable.
So that is, I mean, looking back, right? That's how things have kind of played out. But then you're like, okay, could we find a way to get a break, right? And so that's where we look ahead. And you look
It's the best break we've ever had.
I mean, look at just look at the next 4 games. And Dave, you laid it out really well. Like, look at the travesty of all these teams that we're going up against. Like, what's happened to them? I mean, look what's happened to Iowa, Michigan State. We're losing quarterbacks, losing coaches.
We're going to play 4 teams in a row with a losing record potentially in October.
This will be the easiest 6-game stretch we play for the next 25 years.
Right.
Legitimately, because like USC's coming to town, Oregon's coming to town, Washington's coming to town, Washington State's coming to town, and you've got a down Iowa without a starting quarterback. You've got a Wisconsin with a first-year coach. Michigan State fired their coach. Northwestern fired their coach. Purdue is a first-year head coach. Illinois stinks.
4 ranked teams.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon is unbelievable. They're unbelievably good. Washington is unbelievably good. USC is unbelievably good. You mix those in with Michigan and Ohio State, like our schedule will never be better than playing Illinois, Northwestern, Purdue.
I mean, honestly, good news is we can still do it this year.
Even we can still do it. Like we don't even need to. We don't even need to do much. Like just win
21 points a game, and we're in.
Win half of these, and you're a god. Like think about last year. They threw a parade for freaking Mickey. When he beat, what was it, Rutgers? It was like they wanted to build a statue. Like all you got to do is win half of these games.
Indiana and Rutgers.
And Rule will extend his contract by 10 years.
God damn.
Like this is the exact stretch we were hoping to see when we found out we were leaving the Big 12. Like, hang on. We're not gonna have to play Okie State that's gonna hang 55 a game. We're not gonna have to play against Oklahoma that has a Heisman quarterback every single year. We're gonna be playing against Northwestern and Michigan State and Illinois. Oh my God.
And that's what we did to the Big Ten the first 3 years in it. It was like we would just Polina's won 9 games. You're like, I didn't even once look up Illinois' roster. I just never even looked at it. I was like,
the other thing that is just very bothersome about where we're at right now is that we managed to underplay our potential. Like if you trust recruiting websites, which there are many websites, they all seem to agree that Nebraska routinely has a top 25 class. If that's the case and you're coaching pretty well, you should be playing like a top 25 team. Like that's just the way that things go, with plus or minus, a ranking of like 10 spots. That's just typically how things go. We just have not done that at all over this last decade. And that's what's just like infuriating is that if you're consistently getting top 25 recruiting classes, why are you losing to teams whose recruiting is outside the top 50?
Yeah.
It's just
I think it's probably unfair to compare to a Michigan team. Michigan's in year 9 of Harbaugh. He's an elite coach. They're coming off the playoff. They've won back-to-back Big Ten championships. They're a very good team, very well coached, very strong.
But what you want to see is that you play them like a top.
There was no fight. Yeah,
like a middle to top tier team would.
Yeah, there was absolutely no fight. That was you can make excuses like we've been making excuses for 10 years. We can keep making excuses. I agree. There was no fight in that game. We just rolled over and died and just never even cared. But the true test and like if losing to Illinois will become like I can't call Michigan embarrassing yet, but I will like Illinois will be like, okay, Rule.
It's
temperature's up. But like I get it, it's year 1 and you got to do all this stuff and Eric Gilbert's robbing vape shops, but you can't be losing to Illinois year 1. Can't do it.
Yeah.
That no fight thing too. It's like I was looking at like when the guy Roman Wilson, I think his name is, right, catches a ball on the back of our helmet.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff where you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. What a play. Like, why doesn't everyone do that? And it's like, well, because usually the other guy's fighting. It's like when, like an older brother that puts you in a full Nelson and you're like, this has to be the greatest move ever. And it's like, well, yeah, but you should never get put in a full Nelson because you should have a little bit of fight in you. And it's like, that shouldn't happen. And someone shouldn't catch a ball on the back of your helmet and retain it to the ground unless you are so weak and like lacking any sort of fight and drive that you allow it to
wiggle your head a little bit.
Yeah, that was painful start to finish. I think half the stadium filled out at halftime. It was, but we've seen a bunch of these over the last handful of years, so it'll be interesting if they do come back and fight back. And Rule went out in the press conference. And he's like, "You're going to find out a lot about us on Friday, and you're going to find out a lot about me on Friday." All right, let's see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if it's all lip service and just in getting into more of the macro questions of Nebraska. Well, actually, one more micro. Most embarrassing moments of this game.
There's a lot of them.
I know there's some, but we're not football related. Number one was how about JJ McCarthy making out with his
on the sidelines?
On the sideline.
Unbelievable.
The third quarter, what was she doing down there? Why does she travel with the team? Why is she hanging out on the sideline? He's just not even watching the game.
That's like we're the laughing stock. It's like
how did we even get her on the sideline? Can we start there with Nebraska security? How about is there anything holding people back from bringing all of their girlfriends?
It's
like the next step is just Dylan Raiola takes Jeff Sims' girlfriend and is like, "Oh, she's coming to Georgia with me." And it's like, no, he's not.
Dylan, come back.
It's not even a recruiting visit. He's just here to watch his uncle coach, and he took our backup quarterback now injured his girl.
I'm hanging on to Dylan Raiola for at least 3 years. He's coming. I think he's coming. He's going to keep coming back. He's not going to play at Georgia. Maybe he'll blow his ankle out or something, and nothing bad, and then he'll come to Nebraska. I think he's going to come.
Okay, I have another one.
There's nothing worse than that one.
After the game, Jim Harbaugh, regarding that interception, they covered this on College Football Inquirer, but he had the team sing the interception of the D lineman, big giant guy. He had his team sing "For He's a Jolly Good Fellow" regarding that interception. It's the biggest football guy, but kind of doesn't totally know how to connect with younger, but "For He's a Jolly Good Fellow" is just not it. Yeah, that's who we're losing to.
That's kind of like a hip hip hooray.
Yeah, it's a Mike Riley. Mike Riley there.
Hey, I know this song was written in the 1920s or something, but are we still doing this? Do you guys know this one? It was a jam back in my day. The last one was Ty Robinson when he's chasing after McCarthy on the sideline. I don't know if you caught this or if you could bear to watch, but he just pointed at him as if to say, "I'm going to need someone else to get him, and I'm going to need some like he's pointing to the D-backs and linebackers get him, someone." He's running and he's the closest player to him and he's just pointing at him.
It's great.
Yeah. So those are the moments we got to get past. He's a jolly good fellow making out on the sideline and just pointing at the quarterback running straight past you.
Did they punt?
Bark back.
Did they punt?
I don't know if they punted. Now we're moving on.
I believe they punted in the fourth quarter.
This is another terrible one, but I think it was Mike Schaefer on someone on Twitter was like, I think in the moment said that was the most humiliating loss in Nebraska history or something. Like they tweeted that during the game, and there's a flood of comments underneath it that were like, not even close. Do you remember Ohio State last year? Do you remember Michigan 2 years ago? Do you remember Ohio State 3 years ago? Do you remember Texas Tech? Do you remember the flood? There's 100 comments that were like, you don't remember? Do you remember this one? This was like, oh my God, there's 600 other games that were also horribly humiliating that we've also lived through. Anyway.
And Michigan ate 24 ears of corn in their celebrations.
That's great.
That was rough too. It's the same thing. Salt and pepper again. You gotta dress it.
They went through an entire
I do think imagine how much more fun all of this would be. Our Twitter handle, our following, our podcasting, all of it, if it wasn't so we're just constantly trying to get up off the mat. Every single week, it's like, all right, got to get it back off the mat. Like, got to flush it. Got to flush it. Patience. Like, I've been waiting for like 12 years. Like, how much patience do I need?
So on that note, Dave, I would love to see like your Twitter audience, like just like some screen grabs of their group chats, like from during the game. Like I know at one point, like ours was like, "Do you guys ever just consider pouring a glass of bleach?" Like, but like
so
the
bad.
meltdown text messages. Like I would just love to see like a text message like me, Dad, Grandpa, Uncle John, and it's just like the flood of stuff. Like the best memes too, like the kind of depressed memes that go out.
That's a good idea.
I think it's so sad because it's like,
send us your most depressing texts from this last week.
That's actually really funny.
That's gonna really help us flush this.
That's so bad because it's like we've done it so much that you sort of just like, all right, Saturday stinks, flush it, wake up Sunday, like, exercise, go for a run, flush it by Monday, you're okay. Tuesday, we're back. Like the cycle is like so far there. It's like, oh yeah, here's another loss. Anyway, get us back on track here.
We are back. Yeah. So the big question here and what people are actually coming to this podcast for is to have us convince them why we're on track back. And it's pretty hard to do after you lose 45-7, but the ways that we can get back on track. Here's what I've broken it down into. Number one, our defense is going to need to be winning us some ball games. Number two is the fans. Number three is recruiting. Number four, just winning ball games. And number five is we need our version of Taylor Swift. We need someone that's going to take us and our PR to the next level without us having to do anything. And we're going to be cool again as a result. So starting with number one, though, turnovers. We commit a lot of them. Great at that. But getting the ball back and creating some just creating more opportunities and stuff for ourselves. Our offense needs all the help it can get. Our defense is going to need to score points. It's going to need to be – we're going to need to score more on special teams and defense, I think. Iowa scores like every single game on defense and special teams. It's unbelievable. And by the way, that counts towards Brian Ferentz's total. It's kind of BS. His 25-point average that he needs to maintain, the defense points count towards that. It's ridiculous. They already have like 3 touchdowns this year or something crazy. But anyways, we have 3 forced fumbles on the year, 0 recovered, I believe, and then we only have a handful of interceptions as well. We haven't really gotten after the QB in the last 2 games. We had 0 sacks and 0 sacks against.
What happened there? We had 8 sacks against Colorado.
Missing a couple key players, I think, is one of the places to start. But I think that we were calling way too conservative a game against Michigan, like way too much. I mean, we were sitting back as if McCarthy was just going to pick us apart or something. And he did. But they also ran the crud out of the ball all over us. But yeah, 0 sacks the last 2 games. We had 1 QB hurry versus Louisiana Tech, 1 versus Michigan, whereas we had 3, 4, and 3 in the games before that. And then again, just like the offense needs some dudes, I think it's Gifford, Newsome, Hartzog. They have 3 pass breakups each. That's 9 total. The team has 17 total. So they have over half of our team's pass breakups. Like they're our ball hawks. They are the guys. They are guys that are going to need to be turning these pass breakups into interceptions, turning these interceptions into yards, turning those yards into, okay, offense, you're now on the 20-yard line. Go finish the job. Like, I know it's a lot to ask, but when you are a defense-first team, you have to have the defense, unfortunately. You have to task them with a little bit more than you usually would. It's not just get stops. It's take the ball from them and turn it into either points or put our offense in the best position humanly possible.
Yeah, I think I can't quite figure out too. Like I'm so bullish on Ty Robinson and Polar Bear that I think they're both awesome, and when they play well, they play extremely well. But they haven't quite reached that. I mean, Sue is pretty strong. But like that complete
Stu
disruptive
was good.
level.
Yeah, Stu was good.
No, well, I'm not saying like you don't even need Sue's
I'll
level
give
of
you that.
disruption,
I'll give you that.
but they're not like disrupting the game much, right? Like that I think they were in the first couple of games. Like
Yeah,
they
they
could
were.
really jack up like
They were.
an entire offense by just blowing up the offensive line. And I think they were doing that. Maybe it was inferior offensive lines, and now they got humbled by Michigan.
I think that's
But there's if Ty Robinson is blowing up in playing as well as he was against Minnesota and Colorado, that's a very disruptive defense. I think. I mean, Singleton and having Reimer out hurts, but you have enough dudes there. That's why they rotated in 17 guys in the very first couple games.
Yeah, Lenhart, you need back. You need him.
I think we have a lot more dudes on defense than we do on offense. There's hardly any that can take the ball and own a game on offense, but on defense, you feel good. It's been a weird couple games.
Yeah, I think that linebacker position, over the last couple of games is just having Reimer out, and he's kind of that guy. I just remember in the Northern Illinois game when they were hitting, like they were thudding, and you just don't quite have that. And Reimer was making some plays in that game too, I believe, and it was like whenever they were hitting, it was like you could hear it, you could feel it, like it was stopping guys in their tracks. And so I think his presence and just maybe being a little bit of lacking some confidence with him out. They're not playing as confidently, as quickly, as aggressively to just go out and make plays. And I think they're kind of they sure look like they're thinking a lot now. Like even when they're going to attack deep balls, they're kind of still just doing that face guard thing where, you're either getting a defensive pass interference or you're hoping it's overthrown. But they're not really attacking it in the last couple of games, it seemed, or game and a half, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought, when is Buford back, by the way? Did I miss anything on that?
I don't think they've said.
Gosh, I mean, he's got a valuable asset too. But, Newsome, I think you'd like to see him, kind of elevate his game to the next level as well. Gifford's actually playing pretty well. He had 7 tackles against Michigan. Newsome is, he's leading the team in pass breakups. But again, Newsome, Hartzog, Gifford, those guys are 3 of your playmakers. Reimer, we would love to have him back. Do we know why he went to the hospital? Do we have any clarification on that?
I didn't see, but it was like
said it was a non-football related pain.
He was supposed to play, and then he woke up that day, and they were like,
I think that means he could have pooped his pants or he's vomiting everywhere.
I thought it was more towards kidney issues or something.
Oh, that's a new one.
Maybe I totally made that up. I don't know. Okay. Maybe I'm starting rumors.
Well, Luke, get your kidneys better soon.
That's usually a quick recovery.
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea. All I know is they said he literally
an injury,
Rule thought the morning of Rule thought he was going to play, and they came in the morning and the trainers were like, "Hey, we got to talk to you about Reimer, and he's going to the hospital." And they're like,
"We need him back." Point number 2, onto our macro. How do we get Nebraska back on the right track and stuff right now? Fans, we gotta do our job. We got to hold it together. You saw people. I mean, I know there's debates on this, but for the best fans in the entire country, man, that place was emptying out in the second quarter. I mean, just emptying out. And there's only a couple tasks as Husker fans, really, when you're in the stadium. Number 1, you got to be loud. Number 2, you got to clap to the tunnel walk. You got to be in unison. Number 3, the bathroom lines. We got to just in and out, no problem. Quick rinse of the hands. We got to be nice and efficient here. Number 4, we got to have our concession decisions ready. We got to, no fumbling. You got to know what you want. You got to want it. You got to get it in and out. There's a couple just courtesy rules and things as fans that we got to be following, and we got to be on it. The Husker power. It's good. The timing has to be right. You got to nail it. You got to be ready. This is your moment. And I think everybody's just a little off right now. Everyone's a little off. We could use a reset. It's good that we've got an away game this week. And the next time we're back at home, we'll get things back on track there.
Well, I think that's what's It's a little unfair for Rule that he's kind of coming in and catching the weight on the shoulders of 10 years of failure, right? Like he's only been here for 4 weeks, but he's sort of like bearing the burden of 10 years of us being like, here we go again. We've already done this. We did it with Riley, did it with Frost, did it with Blaney. Now we're doing it with you. So I think, and I think to an extent,
the fans are stuck too.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, the fact that, we're still selling out games after losing, 16 out of 22. Fans are doing their part. The players, the amount of investment that's gone into this program from the fans, from the businesses, from people, like merchandise licensing, all of it. Like, I agree that fans got to continue to show up, but at some point, there's got to be some return on this investment. There has to, these fans. That was 95 degrees at that. It's 95. You're down 30. Whatever, nothing at halftime. You're getting your absolute doors kicked in. It's a tough time, and I think I agree. I think it's probably unfair for Rule because he's catching some Frost flack. He's catching some leftover flack from a lot. Fans are just running out of patience.
We're beaten down.
But I guess that's what comes down to. Frost was given. Everybody was totally okay giving him 7 years, but I think a lot of that was one because he was from here, but. He was from here and he was the chosen one. He was the prodigal son, all this stuff. But he also showed these flashes of oh, there it is, right? Literally, just Adrian going for 350 against Colorado. I was like, yep, give him 4 years. I will give you unlimited time. Rule's kind of giving us nothing. It's you got to give us a little something.
That, yeah. And you go back to that, when we talk about giving Frost so much leash too, it's I remember saying, if we had Al Henry on this team that could kick field goals and punt, we would have won 4 or 5 more games. That is insane. It wasn't the quarterback. It wasn't the O-line. It wasn't the defense. It wasn't anything else. It was just this. And that's what they said. We don't have a special teams problem. We have a specialist problem. I don't fully agree with that. But, if you did just have Al Henry on that team kicking and punting or an Adi Kunalik or whatever, you're probably winning 4 or 5 more games. But I agree. You got to show something, and I think it goes back to what we started this pod talking about too, with Satterfield, where it's you got show me something that makes sense, and you're not doing that. That makes it.
I agree everything you're saying here. Fans got to show up and do their part, but I do think they will if you give them just legitimately. Look at Mickey Joseph last year. He beat Indiana and. Indiana and Rutgers, and he almost got a statue in front of the stadium. They wanted it as he's the head coach. He just has to win a Big Ten game.
Yeah, and by no means am I saying that the fans are doing poorly. I just, as far as if Nebraska is going to get on track to where we want the program to be, the fans are such a huge part of that experience. For the athletes,
it's the only part. It's the only part left.
This announcer that comes in and commends Nebraska football. That's a hugely positive look for the program, and that is one of our calling cards as the program, and we have to keep that on our shoulders and keep that responsibility, and just remember that we are the best fans in the entire country. There is no doubting that. We have to keep being the best fans in the country, and if we keep doing that, it does pay off, I think.
Yeah, and if you could just win a Friday night divisional game,
do
you know how much fun that makes a college football Saturday, where you just sit there all day and you laugh at 50% of the teams and how bad they are.
It's
great. Yeah, it's the bar is low, and we're not facing Ohio State. We don't have USC. We're facing Illinois, a coachless Northwestern that just fired Fitzgerald, a first-year head coach at Purdue, a Michigan State coach that just fired their coach in the midseason, Maryland, who's playing really well, which is kind of a weird one. Wisconsin's got a first-year head coach, and then Iowa, who just lost their quarterback for the season. So it is set up as well as it could be. We've got an unbelievable opportunity to go 4-0 in October. You go 4-0 in October, you're 6-3 on the season. This is actually, it's crazy because this is how I mapped out the season from the very beginning in the preseason pod, if you remember this, Andrew.
Yeah.
The preseason pod, I mapped this out exactly like this. The only difference is we didn't have the stark reality of having this offense, and I'm this team has given me nothing. But I thought we'd lose to Minnesota. I didn't think we'd lose to Colorado. That was still shocking to me. I said we'd lose to Michigan, and we're like basically exactly where I thought we'd be, and then I thought we'd run the table from here. And that's probably still aggressive, but it's not that.
It's
unreasonable.
Well, your whole rundown of all the flaws in these other teams, and we have a new flaw to add. Apparently, I don't know if you guys have seen, but apparently the stadium we're supposed to play in on Friday is currently on fire. Literally on fire.
Oh yes. That's great.
Joking. It's on
right
Twitter,
now.
Like it's on Twitter right now. Yeah, and they're saying Memorial Stadium in Champaign, Illinois is on
currently
fire.
burning down.
Dude, play it in play the game.
Oh my gosh.
Play it in
Kevin Lighty, chief meteorologist, Memorial
just
Stadium.
Gonna play it in a field?
Yes.
Where the
just
Fighting
play
Illini play football and are scheduled to play Nebraska on Friday is at least partially on fire.
Yes.
Smoke is pouring out from the lower level on the south side of the stadium.
Get the heck out of here.
Perfect.
This
is the break we've needed.
This is it. Well, no. So this is what
every stadium on fire before we play there.
See, this is the break that we've needed, but we also need to finally take advantage of because like we keep having all these games canceled. The Akron game gets canceled. All these games get canceled for like ridiculous reasons. We need to take one of these absolute ridiculousness, like COVID canceled season, whatever it is, and finally like flip it. Let's go. Let's put our hard hats on. Let's get our fireman suits on and go into that stadium, lit on fire.
Just wearing fire suits.
And if we do lose, we can be like, what are the chances? It would be a tragedy fire game that got them, got them ready to go.
Asthma on our team breathed in too much smoke and just like keels. That would be the curse of Nebraska right there.
Fire Memorial Stadium. Incredible.
Incredible. Out, so good job to those firefighters. They could have let it go a little longer, maybe.
Hopefully it just knocked out like I don't know. Maybe hopefully just did enough damage that they're thrown off and
just collapse one side of the stadium. We're good with that.
Perfect.
Anywho, that's huge, Chuck.
Great investigative reporting from your Twitter phone.
That could be the break we need. I think that's numbers 1, 2, and 3. Is building an identity based on our defense, solid running the football. Number 2, fans keep doing our part, remain calm. Number 3, stacking wins against an absolutely atrocious, just horrid conference that we are in. Probably the worst division in all of Power 5. It's amazing. And then number 4, I think, is recruiting and our transfer portal. I thought it was interesting last week that Rule basically said, he just goes, how are we going to fix this? We're going to recruit, we're going to hit the transfer portal, and we're going to develop what's on campus. And that is the simplest way of putting the formula of getting Nebraska back is you lock down the 500-mile radius. You get your studs from the Midwest. We actually have solid talent within Nebraska's borders that has escaped us recently. We get our linemen, a couple of skill players from around here, and then you get your transfer portal. You get a quarterback this year. I'm not sure which direction they're going with things, but definitely going to hit receivers. Probably going to hit O-line on the portal again, and that's like your good fast scheme. Everything else is development from there. What's on campus, who's coming in as a freshman, and the portal players are kind of your stopgap measures and stuff. We're not rich enough to be Clemson, who doesn't use the transfer portal, and so we have to replace. Well, they're doing all right for themselves.
They have 2 losses already.
That's where I'm at with
but even that, like, I'm not worried about like there's no doomsday because the transfer portal changes everything. You can flip your roster in 6 months and you can bring in brand new players. And we need a dramatically devoid of elite playmakers, especially on the offensive side, that they can flip that quick in the offseason. I guess the thing he has to do is he's got to show them something to get excited about in these last 6-7 games.
Sure.
Because that's what helps, right? Like Dion has already done it clearly, but like for like Dylan Raiola, he comes and watches that game. So like, oh, this is an exciting offense. I can't wait to play in it. I think you have to give him something that's like, hey, just picture yourself here this is the offense we're running. This is going to be unbelievable. Like if you're a wide receiver, do you want to come into this offense, an offense that Marcus Washington has 7 catches in 5 games? Probably not.
I do think that the investment in the facilities is something that's got to stand out. Like, $450 million going into this stadium. And, I know people are bummed about, okay, we're losing seats. This is going to be like, I was looking at it. It is going to be an unbelievable stadium. I already think it's unbelievable. And now I'm like looking at these things that I didn't even know that I wanted. I mean, it's going to be even more unbelievable. There's going to be seat backs starting there. There's going to be a concourse that wraps nearly all the way around the stadium. There's going to be more luxury seats and space. It's going to be more of a bowl. It's going to trap sound in. It's going to be an intimidating, unbelievable luxury place to play. And not to mention the $150 million renovation in the North Stadium right now. That's like still opening up with new things. So, I mean, I think it is more recruiting for me. Like the fans, we will be anywhere. We will cheer anywhere. We're going to be in Champaign this week. Whether they redid the seats or not, we would still probably sell the place out. The experience will be better. The experience will be awesome for fans. The renovation is going to be better for fans. But I think like for recruiting purposes strictly, that's an advantage that we got to show off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think stadium or facilities or any of that has ever been a problem. We've always had fan support stadium facilities. I think it's only going to help. There's just been such a weird missing link of talent development players that will get us the edge. But it's not gonna hurt. You see the fan support, you want to come play.
It's been great to see is people rallying behind the horse trough urinals. Like
that's been good.
Pointing that out on Twitter, just randomly saying it's like an ascent into manhood once you finally use that thing and you're just right next to some 87-year-old man who has a prostate problem trying to get it started. And you're just like 8 years old, and you're like, "Wow, this is what men do. This is what we do right here." Giant trough.
You grew up fast. You grew up fast on those urinals.
Yeah, you see some things in there. I got to tell you, but it's interesting to see people uniting on Twitter. They're like, "Don't let them eliminate the horse trough urinal.
Don't let them eliminate the most unsanitary, disgusting thing that's ever existed."
Yeah, it's like 18th century England, just like peeing in a latrine, in a trough.
It's a trough.
The other stadium upgrade, I think they're kind of still missing though. You got between the hedges and the SEC. I want between the corn rows, put corn in the end zone.
Just start throwing corn.
Just embrace it. Embrace it.
Put a row of corn in the end zone. It actually looked pretty sweet if they did that around the whole perimeter. But then Michigan would eat it all.
Some tough visibility problems with the
the handicapped area is probably an issue there, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think they harvest it at the same time? You'll have to bring that, or you just let it grow.
Yeah, late in the season, there's nothing there.
So bad.
The last thing that I threw on there, kind of jokingly, but again, you watch what's happening at Colorado. USC's always had it. Every big program ends up with just buckets of celebrities on their sideline, and that. You hate to say it, and you hate to even stoop to that. But what Taylor Swift is doing with the Chiefs, pro football, different game, it is unbelievable the amount of attention and eyeballs and cool factor that happens with this. With when Lil Wayne walks your team out at Colorado, and when Will Ferrell is on your sideline at USC, recruits I think notice that. It's not when Snoop Dogg's standing there on the sideline at USC, there's high school kids that are just their jaws are on the ground there.
Yeah, it matters. I mean,
it's Larry the Cable Guy.
That's
not great.
You wouldn't say that.
I think he's a little.
Larry, he should be on this pod, but God dang,
But if we start going down like a living rabbit hole, that's a little in my wheelhouse. So right, you get start. All right, hear me out. They start just giving out scholarships to we got those track girls that are kind of blowing up on online and on TikTok and stuff.
Okay.
So we've got like our own like Livy Dunn girls.
Oh,
You just start recruiting. Oh yeah.
Great.
And so you start recruiting gals to be like, I don't care, like the last scholarship on the volleyball team, because they're going to get tons of TV time. And it's just an Instagram model, right? And so then she's going to get eyeballs. And now all of a sudden she blows up. She's famous. She's your new Taylor Swift, Livy Dunn, what have you.
Boom.
That's
Social
cool,
media
I mean, it's one scholarship.
Has been conquered.
The USC Song Girls, yeah, they've been doing it for years, right?
I mean, we had a good thing going with Gabby Union. I mean, she's pretty popular. We need Bad Boys 3 to come out. That's she had Bad Boys 1 and 2. She was top of her game, and then she married D Wade. 10 years now.
Damn it.
We're stuck on Bad Boys 2.
Give Chris Tucker an honorary degree.
I think we got a good thing going with Bud Crawford. I think that's
you
solid.
gotta lean into Bud Crawford a little bit more and get him to like meet with recruits and get them to like go train with him or something.
Well, you get him to fight at Memorial, like get him to fight Spence or whatever at Memorial Stadium. Then
Boxing
you lean into
Day
that.
in Nebraska next summer. Holy cow!
That'd be massive. And so then you basically, I think that's one thing, right? Instead of individuals, how do you just create like that arena and be like, this is a place, like it's not just a football stadium. It is like
I just think that the Nebraska brand needs to make a little bit. We need to shine it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit tarnished. I mean, all the Barstool stuff that was going on this last week, they just all feel bad for us.
It's terrible. I know. That was interesting because it was like, I think on the one hand, it is, kudos to Compton for bringing that crew here and bringing that kind of energy. And it's like, we still are a draw despite how not good we are. They're still there. The fans still go. The shows will still come. Game day will still come for like a game at some point again. All that stuff still exists. But yeah, there is a little bit of like, you hate being a pity party. This Barstool guys were just pitying us. It was terrible. Prez was pitying us constantly.
I think that's it. You become a defensive philosophy team that can put up points with good quarterback play and power running game like Nebraska fans want. You've got the best fan base in the country already. Your recruiting will thrive off of the facilities and thrive off of our Taylor Swift, which is Larry the Cable Guy currently, until the Instagram model strategy. And you start stacking wins, and then like that's like the formula for success in college football. You got an identity for the team, you've got an identity outside of the team. Your recruiting starts to take off. You plug and play some transfer portal players that just become elite, and you start stacking wins. That's it.
And we put so much on the coaches, and I wonder how much of this is bigger than the coaches, right? That it is like, we don't want that to be Nebraska's identity. And by we, I mean like the administration and things like that, where it's like, if you're not wanting to adapt, right? Oh, we don't want to bring a Lane Kiffin in that's going to be really edgy and run crazy things. It's like, well, maybe that's what you need, you know? And but if you're not going to if you were going to bring in like a Lane Kiffin and you're not going to let him be Lane Kiffin, or you bring in a Scott Frost, and did you not let him be Scott Frost? I don't know. I think they gave Scott a lot of leeway, but if you're not going to let them do what they need to do to bring in the right guys, like even when I remember there was talk about, would we bring on Dion? And it's like, no, we wouldn't let him come and become Nebraska.
Yeah. And Dion has figured out a lot of stuff. I think he's exactly kind of what you're alluding to, Andrew, is he's kind of figured out that like, showing his son and showing Travis Hunter driving around in Ferraris is what kids care about. And like they get to walk out to Lil Wayne. He's got the baby in there giving pregame speeches. He's got Snoop Dogg on the sidelines. Like, it's Colorado. It's like the least cool program in the country, and he's made them cool instantly. And it matters.
That's the crazy thing, is that some of the stuff is not football related in any way.
Doesn't matter though. It's like you're recruiting an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong. I mean, shoot, I would be very fine with driving the things that they're driving if that were an option.
Well, you look at in
buses,
businesses too, right? This startup culture. You're like, okay, well, none of those
Yeah.
oh, we give you unlimited time off. We give you these pods that you can take naps in.
How do I pick and
you're like, how does that help to drive profit? And they're like, profit? Who cares about that? We need to attract talent and investor money. And then we can worry about profit later. And it's kind of like the same thing what Dion's doing. He's like, ooh, what are you talking about wins? No, I need guys and I need eyeballs because that's going to bring in money, which will give me more guys, which will then get me wins. And he got a couple wins early.
And for him too, it's like, I do think he's actually playing chess from everybody else. Like he's just trying to build awareness and eyeballs. He'll get a handful of wins and then he's gone, right? So he's playing his cards perfectly. He'll be there 2 years and then he'll be on to the next thing. So in that regard, it's like build some awareness, get some eyeballs, get a couple wins. Like he's already success, and then on to the next. But yeah, I don't know. He's hit on such a chord of like, you see it, and you're like, yeah, that's what an 18-year-old wants. He wants to drive a nice car, and he wants TikToks to be made of himself constantly, and he wants Travis Hunter has his own show. It's like that's what they want. That is what an 18-year-old wants. And we're sitting here like they want to run the football. Like no, they don't. No, they don't. They want a Bugatti. They want a Bugatti. That's what they want. They don't want to run the football. They want a Bugatti.
I mean, I'll take Rule 10 out of 10 times, to be honest. Like, even if it doesn't end up working out, like I just think personality wise and like approach wise, I think that he defines Nebraska pretty well, like in terms of like he reflects our own culture pretty well. And, that I think that counts for a lot amongst the fan base.
He'll be significantly more stable. He'll be significantly more, he'll be here in 3 years will be a win in itself. It's more just, I do think there's an element though of Rule needs to like learn from that, right? He didn't coach during the transfer portal era at Baylor. He built it the real way with recruits and 18-year-olds. It's just different now. It's NIL, it's transfer portal, it's changed. So I just think you can. I think Dion would be a miserable failure here, but I do think you can learn from him.
Sure. Speaking of learning, shall we talk about Illinois for a few minutes and wrap this thing up?
Yeah, let's wrap.
So, what do we like? What do we hate? I think the game is going to end up being won on third down. I think that we are two teams that are tremendously terrible at converting third downs. Illinois is 32.2%. Nebraska's at 38.9%. We're at 18.8 points a game, and Illinois is at 21.6. It is clearly going to be for any people considering should I go out on Friday or not that are not Nebraska fans, I mean, just go out and just enjoy yourself. We'll catch you up later. I think it's going to be an ugly one. I really do. Illinois is actually second in QB run attempts. We're first. They love to run the ball. They love to play Bielema ball, but they're just not doing it very well this year. And last year they did it great. They locked it down on defense. They had a top 10 defense. They had a number one passing defense in the country. And they're just not doing that this year. They're averaging giving up, I think it's over 30 points a game. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of play a little bit of bully ball and try and play what Matt Rule has been trying to do these last couple of games and just keep it going. I imagine Harburg is going to start as long as Sims is sounds like he's still maybe just a little bit banged up. And I think that we're going to get it done on the ground. But the third down conversions is that number you have to tilt in your favor. The special teams you have to tilt in your favor. And you have to have the defense play up to its potential because I think it is going to be like neither team's hitting 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aggressively Googling to see if Reggie Love's going to play, and it seems like he didn't. He was in a boot last week at the game, didn't play at all. He's been practicing this week, so we'll see if he plays. That's a huge loss. I agree. I mean, I think the Northern Illinois playbook works. I think you control the game. I think you keep them, keep them out of the end zone.
These are the games that Rule needs to, like we said earlier, this is where he's making his money. It's like we've been losing to these teams for too long. This is where you make your money.
Our whole thing works. Like, so they were beating Purdue 13-10 at halftime, and then Purdue scored like 28 unanswered points in the second half.
Sure.
We can do that. Like, that's our whole thing, right? We don't score in the first half either. And then like you just like make them fall apart in the second half, and like, you know, it's set up well. It's a Friday night. Their stadium's on fire. They're starting running backs out. Their quarterback's on fire.
I mean, that's an advantage.
I mean, come on.
I need to see Tristan Albano, West Side's finest, actually deliver.
He stinks.
Because he's going to be a factor unless we go with a different kicker or something. But
we have Timmy Bleekrode on the team. I don't understand.
Right. Yeah. So I hope that we have a starting kicker at the end of Friday night. And hey, if it's Albano and he delivers, that's great. If it's anybody else, I literally do not care. If Harvard can kick the ball, I don't care. Let him kick it. But I need somebody to make some field goals because I think it's going to be a critical part of this game.
What was? 100%. Yeah, he was. Gosh, I'm trying to look it up. He was 30 of 38 in his career kicking field goals. Bleekrode is, and he was 9 of 12 last year. I don't know. What are we like?
Yeah, I mean, what
are we doing?
Seem pretty committed to Albano. He must be, the future at the position, that kind of thing. But it is crazy. I mean, he's a true freshman. Like, it's a big gap between high school and college. You're still just kicking field goals, I guess. But I guess maybe not that much has changed. But they really seem to trust him, and it's something that like 2 years from now you're like, okay, at least he got every single shank out of his system.
Yeah,
as a freshman, like that was. I'm glad this has worked out.
I just think you're kind of a bummer. It's like him and Jeff Sims. All these guys are like right on the edge of being like, you're like one missed field goal away from never playing again, and Jeff Sims is like one fumble away from being like that guy can never see the field again. It's like these guys they're already like on thin ice as is.
Yeah, already. The other thing is just our O-line versus their D-line is going to be super interesting because their D-line they basically have two guys that are Newton is one of them. I can't remember the other, but they're NFL talents. And last year they were on this D-line as well, and it was one of the best D-lines in the country. And so our O-line versus them is going to be a test. Like, even though they're giving up 30 points, those are against teams that can pass. Like Toledo can pass. Purdue apparently after last week they can pass. We have not really shown that ability. So if we're going to be pure run, we're going to be going against a pretty stout D line. So the RO line versus their D line is going to be like a big time battle to watch. I think there.
We just gotta win. Just win. Find a way. Make it happen. Just win. Make next week's podcast not so terrible.
More fun.
I mean, if we lose Illinois, I don't know if we're gonna be back here next week. I can't do these.
It's canceled.
I'll catch you after next.
Sponsors your money back. You can just take it back.
This is your Fair Weather Fan Podcast, sponsored by, brought to you by. All right, wrap this thing up, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you're still listening, kudos to you for listening an hour and 20 in. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we get a win out of this bad boy next week. We're coming in with a little more high energy, a little more win, a little more fun stuff to talk about. That's not so doomsday. Chuck, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chuck.
Go Big Red.